Today I'm going to do some testing on this Fobos Knives Tier 1 BC. And this is going to be testing not just of this knife, but of Magnacut and premium stainless steels as a whole. So a few points to clarify: we are going to beat the snot out of this knife today. However, how this knife performs does not directly equate to the performance of every knife in Magnacut. It does not directly equate to every Fobos Tier 1 bushcraft. And the reason is, different manufacturers are going to do things a little bit differently, and knives to some degree can potentially even be different from one to the next. However, I have seen over and over and over again a sentiment that, for one, about this specific knife, people think that it's too expensive, and for two, people do not believe that these modern stainless steels can have the stainless properties that they have the edge holding that they have, and still be relatively easy to sharpen and tough. It seems to be toughness that people are really questioning in these knives. The ability to do basically everything. So these knives are being written off as just the newest fad steel. Every time a new steel comes out, it's just the newest fad steel. These knives are being written off as not actually performing as well as people say it can perform. I wouldn't actually trust my life, my adventure, my trip to this stainless knife, etc., etc. So we're gonna beat the absolute snot out of this today. And I'm gonna show you the edge up close, looking for microchipping and damage now. We'll do a little bit of a sharpness test as you're watching here. And then afterwards, we will do the same thing again. And this is not, again, this does not mean that every single knife in this steel or every single one of these knives will be as good as or as bad as this knife, but it could be a good data point to see whether or not these steels are actually as tough as they are being advertised. Magnacut, if all things are true about it, could be the perfect, well-balanced steel if its stainless capabilities, edge holding, and toughness are as advertised, as I'll show you right here. So without further ado, we are going to do some apex edge testing. We're just going to do some straight up brutal batoning. We're going to do some some tip testing, which I generally hate, but we'll talk about that later. And a little bit more information. We are at a 0.030 inch advertised thickness behind the edge. I really want to applaud Fobos Knives for giving that information. If more companies advertised their thickness behind the edge, I believe that we could have a better educated industry as a whole. Without further ado, check out this intro, stick around, and we're going to get right into some abuse. Hello. You're watching the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors, and I am your host, Jacob Peterson. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this channel, please do the whole thumbs up and subscribe and bell thing, and consider checking the description box below to see how you can support the channel. Not only do I have affiliate links and a Patreon, but primarily this channel is made possible by sales through my website, Exodus Knife and Tool, where I sell premium American-made knives, and Beach and Tactical, where I sell premium custom made-to-order rifle slings made and designed by myself as well. For the month of May 2023, the channel sponsor is Kami Cleanser Soap. This is the only soap that I have used for months now. No body wash, no shampoo, none of that fake crap. just Kami Cleanser soap. And if more people were buying from small mom and pops businesses that bring to light the issues of the giant corporations and government figureheads that we deal with every day today, the world would be a better place. Get yourself some Kami Cleanser soap. Let's get you right back to the content. The other thing that people don't believe about Magnacut, about these new super steels that are coming out and stuff like that, is they don't believe that a stainless steel hardened so hard can still retain toughness. So this Fobos Tier 1 BC is advertised at 62 on the Rockwell scale. If you're buying a production knife like this in a high carbon scale, it's very unlikely that you get one above 59 on the Rockwell scale. So even your high carbon steel, tried and true tough knives are usually around 57 or 58. This knife is stainless. It's considerably tougher. I'm sorry, it's considerably harder. Does it still have the toughness needed? You guys don't believe it? We're gonna find out. So one of the first things that I did in today's little abuse test was finish out my baton. This is an absolute monster of a baton, scrub oak if I remember right, way bigger and heavier than is practical. However, having a big heavy baton can save you a lot of work and a lot of pounding when you're doing some really nasty stuff. It can also break your knife really easy without it even seeming like you're doing that much because of the amount of energy that is in your baton. So as I was sawing on this little thing, I was trying to get it down to the right thickness. I sawed it down a little bit too far in a couple of places actually. It's hard to tell with this scrub oak where you want to stop and what you want to do sometimes because the way that the grain twists. So I was batoning through this, and I think if you can see this here, the way that this twists between the grain here, I think this is why this stuff will break knives like nobody's business, especially when it's dry like this. The grain twists, it takes the knife with it, and it not only bends, but also twists. That extra axis is what rips edges and breaks knives. You know, we had no issues, batoned through it, carved it up, not bad. I hope this thing doesn't break because it was way too much work for what we got, but luckily this scrub oak is also incredibly tough. So moving from there to batoning through some of this cherry. Cherry can be a fairly hard wood, especially if dried. But this cherry that I'm working with is relatively straight grained, and especially with this baton, no challenge at all. Batoned right through these knots, some of which were very difficult, very challenging, no issue. So I'm going to do some cross-grain batoning coming up next. We're gonna pop some notches out after cross-grain batoning. And so what that does is that tests the torsional toughness of this knife, whether or not it's going to deform at the edge as you're putting pressure on the edge sideways. So this can happen just from carving down and angling your cut, and that can break knives, but what I'm about to do is going to be a lot tougher than that. Cross-grain batoning through seasoned scrub oak like this already constitutes extreme abuse. I mean, this is some really tough stuff in a survival situation. There's basically no chance that I'm going to notch this deep into a wood like this, let alone pop the notch out. We didn't even break a sweat, but the actual process of popping this notch really surprised me. Holy crap. especially with the weight of this baton. That was, bottom line, abuse. I hate this tip testing, I really do. It goes against how I would use a tip. I'm almost never going to drive a tip into a piece of wood and pry just the tip out. It's the thinnest point of the knife. It's the thinnest point of the edge. Sometimes it can show when there are problems in a design or in heat treat. Other times it just shows that you found the weakest part of the knife and you smashed it. However, I think that this knife did phenomenally, and I took it up to the next level as well. After this test, I expected damage. And I thought that I saw some on the edge itself. I thought I saw some microchipping, and it turns out that it was just charred wood on the edge itself. I'm going to show you that up close here. Now, this is cedar that I'm working on. It is aged. The end grain, the way that it grabs, it does mess up tips. The portion that I banged this into and pried on, being that it is fire hardened, so that is some really nasty stuff here. So let's see if I might have to track and cancel. See if we can look at this edge up close. We'll show sharpness here in a second. Lord willing, the quality of this video is good enough to show the edge. I really should get some kind of lens that would allow me to do a micro or macro or whatever. I guess it would be a macro zoom for micro things. I'm not exactly sure. Whatever. I see no damage. I see no bending. Heck yeah. Edge holding, I forgot to talk about edge holding, guys. I was wrapping up and I was like, oh crap, I mentioned that, I need to get back to it. Does it still shave hair? Yes, it does. It still shaves hair right off, no problem. I have not sharpened this knife since I have gotten it, and it is holding an edge. The edge holding, in my experience, already is so far beyond any production 1095, 5160, 1075, 1080, SK5, anything like that. Most production knives, this is so far beyond it that it's crazy. In fact, I had a K-bar Warthog out here, did a couple feather sticks, did a little bit of batoning, did a tiny bit of chopping, and it's already completely lost that factory edge. So, we're going to test edge holding long term. I'll strop this tonight just because I won't actually sharpen it. I'll just strop it because I like stropping. I don't know why I said that. I'm not going to strop it. You know what? I'm not stropping this knife. We're going to use it until it gets dull, and then I'll strop it and see if I can bring that edge back. But it holds a good edge. I would say that this knife, for what it is, for the thickness behind the edge, and a fixed blade that's meant to be used out here, I would say I'm fairly certain the edge holding on this knife is on par with a full custom, and it's probably better than most full customs. So I want to wrap this up. I want to talk about value, because the comments that I'm seeing so often is, holy guacamole, a knife is not worth that much, it's not worth that much, it's not worth that much, it's not worth that much, and no knife is worth that much, could it be worth that much, etc. And so, if I'm not going to tell you that this knife is worth the money for you, what I want to explain to you is why I think this knife is the price that it is now. Magnacut is new and it is expensive, and that is what it is, period. So, if you like your high carbon steel knives and you're like, I want a knife that holds an edge better, that is incredibly tough and is completely stainless, guess what? You're gonna pay for it. It's just the bottom line. Then if you're like, I want a knife with a ferro rod notch, an incredible amount of attention to detail, I want very smooth handle scales here, I want bow drill divots, I want lots of machining in the handle scales, I want a beefy, super tough finish on the knife, no reflection. I want a very nice leather sheath Here, by the way, and this, let's just talk about cost. Let's just break this down. You want a sheath like this made in America specifically for your knife, I would say expect to pay anywhere from $80 to $150. Boom, just like that. You're like, if you say, I want beautiful handle scales like this for my knife that I have, and someone like TKC makes scales for your knife, they're still not going to be this nice, that's 50 bucks. If you want them custom made for your knife, sky's the limit. Probably 100, 150 bucks, I don't know. So you want all of these features, and you want this performance, this steel performance, and honestly, if this knife can handle it, this is probably the best balanced knife steel on the market right now for a stainless steel with the toughness that it offers. You're gonna pay. The price that you want to pay for this knife, Eric, the owner of the company, probably paid more than that himself to make it or have it made, to have all of the options that he has. So, is the knife worth it? Look, what a knife is worth depends on how you use it and what you need. And if you don't need all of this stuff and you just want to buy an SE, that's fine. And spending anything more than that might not be worth it for you. But if you're particular or you have particular needs and you need something more like this, is it worth it? Absolutely. There's nothing about the cost of this knife that makes me raise an eyebrow. There's a lot of knife manufacturers out there selling an 80 CRV2 knife that is factory production made with a terrible handle, no attention to detail, unstabilized wood, a thick edge, and terrible jimping that sells for the price of this knife. Made by a bigger factory, okay? So, I understand why a lot of costs, I understand. I own my own knife brand, okay? A lot of costs, I understand. There's nothing about the cost of the Fobos Tier 1 that makes me scratch my head and be like, is he overcharging there? No, not at all. Not at all. That does not mean that it is worth it to you. But guys, if you get this knife, I think you will not be disappointed. I am surprised in this knife's performance. I think the results speak for themselves. So, I will do more destruction testing, brutal testing on this knife for the final review. I wanted to get this out really quick, get it out to you guys. One thing that I did not test that I do plan to test is I plan to stick this knife, either test this winter if we get an ice storm coming in, or stick this knife into a freezer along with some wood in the freezer and bang the knife through. Maybe get the knife, have the knife be warm and bang it through some frozen wood, do some stuff with some variables and temperatures and stuff like that. But if you are worried about toughness on this knife, I would say that you do not need to be. This is my first knife in Magnacut, so everything that I believe about Magnacut came secondhand from Laren Thomas and testing of other people, and not everybody's going to get the heat treat down pat, guys. That's just the way this works. But as my first knife in Magnacut, my first experience with the steel, I'm really a fan. I think it's really good. And I hope that more companies start using it. I hope it becomes more of an industry standard, because that's going to bring the price down for all of us. And if we can all get well heat-treated Magnacut at about 62 Rockwell scale. That's the other thing that people didn't believe. Now I'm going to cut this earlier into the video. I'm going to talk about Rockwell scale hardness, and then I'm going to do my outro. There we go, guys. You know what? I think that these are for sale on Blade HQ or DLT Trading. I don't know who exactly is going to have them or how many. What I'm going to do, or how long before they sell out, I believe Vega has these at YV Gear. If I mess that up, I'm going to put text down there. But I'm going to put a link to YV in the description box below, and I'm going to put a link to the Fobos website and Instagram in the description box below, because if these all sell out, I want you to still be able to find the company if you are interested, so you can find future runs or whatever. But I'm satisfied. I'm very excited about this knife, and it sounds crazy to say, but if you really need a knife that's going to be tough, hold an incredible edge, and be relatively easy to sharpen, and be incredibly stainless, etc. If you need all of these things, I think this knife offers an incredible bang for the buck. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I hope that you have